Hi there, my name is Stuart. I'm a co-founder of Refundee. We are a company that helps people get their money back when they've been a victim of fraud. This video is recorded for people that have lost money to fraud, and there is a UK bank or e-money institution involved at some point in that payment chain. So it also includes if you sent money from, say, a Revolut account to cryptocurrency. This video is going to talk through your rights. As a start, the purpose of this video really is to tell you about your rights, to tell you about the process of trying to get a refund, and then at the end I'll talk through what you need to do if you wish to use Refundee. This video is really an information video. You feel free to go away yourself and try the process yourself if you want to. You don't need to use anybody to do this for you. This is just kind of set it out for you. It does get a little bit complicated in terms of your rights. It depends on when you sent the payments, how you sent the payments, and things like that, and where you sent it from. So I'll talk through that. So as a start, to be eligible for any kind of, and all this is about getting a refund from your bank. We don't specialize in getting refunds from fraudsters. That's extremely difficult because they're very good at laundering and hiding the money. All of this is about getting money from your bank or your e-money institution that you've used. So as a start, any protection that applies to you, it's all to do with fraud. So we frequently see banks and DMIs, e-money institutions, tell people that what you've experienced is not a fraud, it's a civil dispute. That simply absolves them of any responsibility because the banks aren't obliged to refund you for civil disputes. So one of the first things you have to successfully argue is that you've been a victim of fraud. Some are quite obvious. You should know if you've been a victim of fraud or not. Others, you have to build up evidence and fight the case as to why it is fraud. So that's like the overall thing. So keep in mind that one of the fights you might have is that you have to, you can be fighting about whether something is fraud or not. That is something that we're frequently finding we're doing. You shouldn't really have to, but that's the way it is. Then there's two different elements as to how you can get your money back outside of that. So there is something called the contingent reimbursement model, which you might want to Google to find out a bit more. This is a voluntary code that banks signed up to. On the 28th of May 2019 is when it came into force. It only covers UK to UK transfers that are fraudulent, that are made on or after that date, and from a bank that is signed up to the contingent reimbursement model. Most traditional banks are signed up to the contingent reimbursement model. The major exceptions really are TSB, who actually have a much, much better level of protection. They have a fraud refund guarantee. So if you sent money from TSB and you turn out to be a victim of fraud, that's generally positive for your case. Monzo are not officially signed up to it. However, they've publicly stated that they're going to abide by the principles of the CRM. Therefore, ultimately the Financial Ombudsman Service, which is where these cases go to and what I'll talk about later, they uphold them to that standard. So if this is just for you, you might want to skip a bit. If you sent the money to cryptocurrency or you sent it from an institution such as Revolut or Wise or Tide, who are not signed up to the contingent reimbursement model, you might want to skip this bit. On our website, under our blogs, there is a list of banks that are signed up to the contingent reimbursement model, but you should be able to Google it or just ask your bank. But it's safe to assume that if your bank is one of the mainstream ones, you are covered. So HSBC Group, Lloyds, NatWest, RBS, Nationwide, or all the biggest ones you would have heard of, Barclays, all signed up. So this is just specifically to this. If you send a payment and it turns out to be fraud and it's a UK to UK transfer, the starting point is you should be refunded as long as it meets those criteria after 28th of May 2019, or that kind of stuff that I've just been through. You should be covered and you should be reimbursed. It's almost a kind of insurance. If you are covered, what the bank will then do is it will look into your case, and whether it reimburses you or not, or whether it reimburses you in full or partially reimburses you, depends on a number of factors. So one of the things you have to successfully show them is that you had a reasonable basis for believing that what you were doing was legitimate. So you did your research on what you're investing in. It was all kind of believable. So things like having a proper company's house registration, or meeting people in person, or seeing people getting returns, all this kind of stuff is what makes it really convincing. A good online presence, professional portals, real-time returns, getting returns early on, all these kind of things are what make it quite convincing. and the bank will make an assessment as to whether they think you've got a reasonable basis for belief or not. They frequently get this wrong, and use this against you unfairly. And obviously that's where we come in quite a lot, and where you have to fight the case later. I'll go into that in a bit more detail. Also, there is a get out clause for the banks as well, where they've given you an effective and relevant warning. We rarely see this happen, because for a warning to be effective and relevant, it normally stops you from actually making the payment. That has to be something specific to the scam. So it can't just be these generic in-app warnings that don't really relate to the scam that you're in or aren't effective at all. It has to be, the most effective ones we see where it's a phone call and they kind of tell you, this is how this scam works, we think this is a scam. If you then continue to make the payment, you might struggle to get your money back. Of course, one of the big things that we see is that banks get out of this code by saying you're not a victim of a scam, and we frequently see them get that wrong as well. So that's just something to keep in mind. Just because I've told you you're not covered because it's not a scam, they're probably not right. You will know if it's a scam or not, or a fraud or not. So that's it really with the CRM. I know that's pretty brief, but you can do your research on it. It's a stronger level of protection for you if you sent it via UK to UK transfer, and it only covers it covers businesses as well, but only up to the size of a micro enterprise. So it covers businesses with 2 million turnover of 2 million euros or less per annum. I think it's less than. Yeah, it's less than 10 full-time equivalent employees as well you need, and to be eligible for that. This brings me on to what we call non-CRM cases. So this is what applies to everybody. So if you've got a CRM case, you also have a non-CRM case. This is just about generic industry standards around fraud controls. So as a start, all banks and e-money institutions, they have an obligation to stop financial crime. Financial crime includes you being a victim of a scam. So if you put it in its most basics, it's monitoring your account, your transactions for signs that you could be a victim of a scam, and if they think you are, intervening, warning you about that scam, asking enough questions to see if you are being scammed, and then try and stop you from being scammed is what they're supposed to do. When it comes to your chances of success, I'm not talking about the chances of success as a bank. We rarely see banks pay out up front on this kind of thing. You have to take them to the financial ombudsman service. They very, very rarely pay out at the bank stage. So if you go to this as a kind of, you need to tick 2 boxes to win. So again, this is outside the CRM. This is all people. It's if you send money from Revolut, send it from Wire, send it from Lloyds, it covers everybody. So you have to tick 2 boxes, and you have to tick both of those boxes to win your case. So the first box you need to tick is the account behaviour needs to be unusual enough to argue that it should have triggered the bank's fraud systems. So you can tick this box if and this is individual to each person. So, for example, if you got scammed £5,000 for cryptocurrency, but you've bought cryptocurrency before, you bought thousands of pounds of cryptocurrency before from that account, the behaviour is unlikely to be unusual for you. However, if you've got someone who's just opened up a brand new account and the first thing you ever do is send £5,000 to cryptocurrency, that's likely to be deemed quite unusual and suspicious behaviour. So if your bank or the EMI did intervene on your payments to ask you questions, that box is ticked because it means it has ticked their fraud systems. If they didn't, you have to argue they should have. And there's no hard rule around this. It can get quite complicated, but generally you have to have sent more than £3,000 in a day for it to be deemed unusual. That's not a definite rule. If you send stuff really frequently and it's just really bizarre for you, or you're taking out loans at the same time, all this kind of stuff can all add to something. But you basically need an argument to tick that first box that the behaviour on your account was very unusual for you and your bank or the EMI should have questioned it. The second box you need to tick is that you have to successfully argue that if the bank had intervened, it would have exposed the scam, so it would have asked enough questions to find out that you were being scammed. And if it did that, you would have stopped sending the payment. If it gave you a proper warning, you would have stopped sending the payment. And, for example, a lot of people, that come to us are victims of cryptocurrency investment scams. They follow a very familiar pattern. You generally start small, and then it gradually increases. You get access to a portal that's fake. Um, there's frequent use of screen sharing software. You're instructed to set up accounts with e-money institutions and a crypto exchange to make the investments. You're unregulated. The broker that you're using is unregulated. Everything is unregulated, which is a big red flag. All these kind of things can be deemed as something that a fraud expert at a bank should have noticed. So that's kind of the argument you need to make on non-CRM cases, and that doesn't matter the size of your business, and it doesn't matter when you made the payment, as long as the payment was either in the last 6 years or 3 years from when you realised you'd been scammed. They're the time limits on that. But CRM is a very tight time limit, 28th of January 2019, 28th of May 2019 onwards, and non-CRM goes back all time, but generally the payment has to have been the payment or payments that you can complain about have to have been in the last 6 years. So I appreciate this is a short amount. This is a very it's an overview, but you can manage your case yourself just with this information. So the next bit I'm going to talk about the process of how you do this. So first of all, if you do it yourself, it's a free process, and I would describe it as almost like a 3-stage process. So first of all, if you've been a victim of fraud, all you have to do, in theory, is call your bank or the money institution, or if it's Revolut, you can't call them, you have to message them in the app, and tell them that you've been a victim of fraud. Or it's easy to do that. If you call up, there'll be options that are obvious for what you need to do. At that point, they're supposed to take steps to try and recover the money for you if they can, and they are also supposed to consider whether they've done something wrong and whether they should reimburse you. If your payments are covered by the contingent reimbursement model, they will do this as a standard. However, don't be put off by the responses you get. They might tell you didn't have a reasonable basis for belief. They might tell you that it's not a scam. And we see that all the time. We see people be misled about their rights around this. And if it's a non-CRM case, so you sent the money to cryptocurrency or it's an international transfer or something like that, it's basically not a UK to UK bank transfer, or it's from the likes of Revolut or Wise, who are not signed up to contingent reimbursement model, you're very unlikely to get a refund from the bank at this reporting stage. They're supposed to, but they generally don't even consider whether they've done something wrong, and we very rarely see reimbursement at this stage up front. So the first stage is you basically just call up your bank, tell them, I've been a victim of fraud, let them do what they need to do, and then see whether they reimburse you or not. If they don't reimburse you, this is when you have to raise a complaint with that institution. You can do that over the phone, you can do that in writing, you can do that how you wish, and you don't need to get complicated. You don't need to write a big complex case with quoting legislation and regulation, all that kind of stuff. You just need to say, what I've just told you about, I think I'm covered by the contingent. If they've told you you're not covered in the contingent reimbursement model because it's not a scam, you tell them I think it is a scam and explain why. If they tell you that, if they've not even said anything when it's non-CRM, you just need to explain, I think this was really unusual for me. I think you should have stepped in to protect me. And that's all you really need to do. And they should come back to you with a response. Sometimes they might decide to change their decision and pay out. Most commonly, they will say no still. And this is when you need to go to the financial Ombudsman service. So step 1, report it to your bank. Step 2, and you usually have to call them to do that. Step 2, you then need to complain to the bank, and the complaints are quite an official thing. So I just spoke about that, but the banks have 15 days to respond to you once you've raised a complaint, and they'll give you something called a final response, which has a paragraph at the end that says something like you have 6 months from this date to go to the financial Ombudsman service. Do not miss that 6-month deadline. If you miss that 6-month deadline, you've pretty much killed your chance to ever go through this process. So that's something to really keep in mind. Banks sometimes do this thing where they kind of don't give you a decision, but they give you that letter anyway, telling you you've only got 6 months, and then they kind of keep sending saying they're still looking into it, just these generic letters saying they're still looking into it, and then we see people wait and wait and wait and then miss that deadline, which is something you definitely shouldn't do. Don't let banks do that to you. Um, so once you have that, or if 15 days passes and they haven't responded to you, you can go to the Financial Ombudsman Service. It's easy to get in touch with them. You can see on their website how to do it. You can either fill in an online form or you call them on their website. It's a free service to use, and the idea is that the Financial Ombudsman Service will level the playing field between you and a bank. And again, you just take it there. You argue your case along the lines of what I've just said, why it's unusual for you, why they would have stopped it, or why you should be covered under the contingent reimbursement model. The Ombudsman Service at the time of this call, which is the 23rd of May, has backlogs of about 4 months before your case even gets looked into. So if you raise your case to the Ombudsman Service today, you're talking about 4 months before it even gets looked at. Case by case varies in terms of the timelines of how long it takes. Most cases are resolved within 6 to 12 months. However, for more complex cases, it can take longer, and we do have cases that are taking up to 2 years at the moment, but that is the exception rather than the rule. Again, free to use. I think that's probably it on the Financial Ombudsman Service. Which brings us to Refundee and how you use Refundee, and how much we charge, all that kind of thing. So Refundee is a FCA regulated claims management company. We try to be open and honest with how we conduct our business. I'm pretty sure we're the only company that does this, that will do this kind of thing and tell you how to do it yourself, because obviously it's not commercially sensible for us to tell you how to do it yourself and be as open that you can do it yourself. We're here for people that either don't want to do it themselves, or don't feel able to, or have kind of tried and I get it. A lot of people that fell victim to a scam, you just want to hand it over to somebody else. And we charge much more. Our main competitors charge almost double what we charge 40% more. So we try to charge a reasonable fee to help with that decision to use Refundee. So we charge 15% plus VAT on anything you get back. So it's no win, no fee. If you do win, we charge 15% of whatever you get back plus VAT. This is subject to a cap. So for larger cases, so if you get back more than £66,000, then it's subject to a cap of £10,000 plus VAT. And this is all per case, and per case is basically per bank. So, if you lost £100,000 from NatWest and then £100,000 from Lloyds, that will be 2 cases. And if you got all your money back in that situation, you'll pay £24,000 in total, because it's £10,000 plus VAT for both cases. I hope that makes sense. And we obviously, there's still a bit of work from you up front. Like, you need to provide it. We need to go through what happened with you. And then we need you to provide some documentation to us as well, and then we will just manage your case from there on. But there will sometimes be further questions when the case gets to the Financial Ombudsman Service. And again, the process generally takes between 6 and 12 months, I would say. To use Refundee, I should be clear, there's no other fee with Refundee. The only fee is a success fee. So there's only a fee if you pay success. There's nothing else that can come along the line. So there's not going to be like, oh, you need this piece of paperwork or whatever, and we're going to charge that for it. There's nothing like that. There's only one fee, which is the success fee. If you want to use Refundee, the best thing to do is to fill in the Start Your Claim form on our website. Once you fill that in, you will then be sent an email with a questionnaire, which you can fill in, and that gives us all the information we need. Not that it just gives everything, but it gives us a start, and then it means when we call you or when we can get back in touch with you, it's going to be a lot quicker to get everything else. If obviously it's not for everybody. If you want to go through things on the phone, just give us a call on the number on our website, which is 0204 525 4600. I'm trying to think if there is anything else right now, but I don't think there is. What I will leave you with is, if you have been a victim of fraud and you think you meet the criteria that I've set out, regardless of whether you use Refundee or not, generally going through the bank is your best chance of, it's not going to get you justice, which is what we'd all want. We want these fraudsters to go to prison, but it's generally your best chance of getting your money back, or at least some of it.
The result of this depends on your case, and not everybody succeeds, and it really does depend on the individual circumstances. So, for example, if your bank did block a payment, tried to speak to you about what was going on, and you lied, because often the fraudsters coach people to lie, that doesn't mean you're automatically going to lose, but it can harm your case, and you should probably talk to us about what happened if that was the case. Each case is individual, but what you would generally be expecting depends on your case. It could be anything from 100% of your money back. Well, the maximum you get back in this case is you get 100% of your loss back. So if you send £100,000 and you've got £20,000 back, the best you can expect is 80,000 there. However, the Ombudsman service does award 8% interest per annum from either the point you sent the money to the point you get it back, either that, or from the point that the bank refused to reimburse you when you contacted them, up until the point you finally get your money back. So that's the best result. You get 100%. Other people get 50%. What the Ombudsman service sometimes does is it's kind of assigns liability between you and the bank, and will only give you 50%. And obviously, some people might lose, but the whole process, you have to put a bit of effort in. But at the end of the day, it's free. And so the worst case scenario, you end up in the same position that you're already in. So anybody that thinks they meet that criteria, I would suggest that you go through this process. Yeah, that's it, I think. So I hope this was useful, and thank you for watching.